going to take this discussion in a somewhat different direction. पहली बात यह है कि we are not looking only at a drought, and I think that if we get into thinking that what we are facing is only a drought, then we are in serious trouble. You are in the midst of a mega water crisis. The way the media uses the word drought usually means failure of rainfall. That's what it is. But what you're facing is not just a failure of rainfall. If it was a failure of rainfall, कल अच्छा बारिश मिलेगा तो प्रॉब्लम है ही नहीं. That's not true. वो सच नहीं है. अच्छा बारिश मिलने के बाद भी आपका प्रॉब्लम बढ़ने वाला है, इसलिए कि एक चारों तरफ से वाटर क्राइसिस, पानी की संकट बढ़ रही है. We are in the midst of a mega water crisis that is not 1 year old, not 1 season old, but 20 years old, as I propose to show you what's been happening. Second, in the headlines, the media's headlines when they cover drought, because for them drought is monsoon, failure of rain. So you have nature's fury, cruel skies. I'm sorry for that. What is the meaning of this? Nature's fury, cruel skies. It means that we don't have any role. We have nothing to do. Blame it. And then, of course, photographs of a poor farmer on his knees appealing to the gods for rain. I don't know how many times that photograph has been staged by how many newspapers and how many photographers. It is humiliating. It robs the person of his dignity. Don't do this. Okay? That's one thing. Please don't use these cliches and stereotypes of drought. The headlines, otherwise you have a truck which has come to distribute food, and every poor person putting his plate out there and a top shot from the truck. These are the worst kinds of photographs. They don't convey anything to the reader except a bunch of victims who are powerless and have no agency, and you can't see them as decision making. Okay? So don't do this one. The suggestion that a good monsoon will end our problems is not true. We are in a very serious water crisis. There's also, a lot of it boils down to 3-4 things. How do we look at water? Even those of us who are urban dwellers, 3 generations ago, your great-grandmother and mine, grandmother or great-grandmother, depending on how old you are, they understood where water came from. And when it rained, they put out their buckets and their pots. That's how they grew up. My generation grew up thinking water comes out of a tap. The young generation has grown up thinking water grows in plastic bottles. Okay, a lot of this is how do we look at water, where does it come from, what is its role, does it have a social function apart from an economic one? That's one of the questions that we need to face. The other thing that happens in the media coverage is that farmers' suicides are being linked on a one-to-one basis with rainfall. This is not true. The last 20 years of data, if I map it for you, linking rainfall to farmers' suicides, you'll find that farmers have committed suicides when there's been an okay monsoon. Farmers have committed suicides when there's been a very bad monsoon. Farmers have committed suicide in large numbers when there have been excellent monsoons. So obviously, there are a multiplicity of factors and processes involved in the farm suicides. Drought pushes that person over the edge. It's a kind of last kick to a very unstable home economy. Yeah, but please understand this, that if you map with the IMD's help which were the good monsoons, I will show you years in which there were very high farm suicides even in good monsoons. Of course, drought makes it worse, but it should tell you that it's not the generating factor. Farmers have dealt with drought since the dawn of agriculture. Okay? But the suicides are more relatively recent, 15, 20 years on that scale. So we need to think about that differently. All this way of covering it creates two kinds of problems. One, it suggests that the best mode for all of us is to go into a charitable mode. You know, I do it. Yeah, I confess I do it. I mean, I go out and I distribute money. I do all that. But that is not really the solution or what we should be doing collectively. You know, so the solution to the controversy over IPL is that BCCI should send some water to Latur. I don't want BCCI's charity. I want that the people of Latur have their rights to that water. That is what. It's a question, okay, the fundamental thing that you need to decide. Whatever action you take will flow out of that decision. Is water a fundamental human right, or is it a commodity to be bought and sold? As our economic neoliberals tell you, the solution to this problem is rational pricing, which simply means that IPL can afford water and Latur farmer cannot. That's all it means. That's the rationale. Is it a human right? And secondly, what are the priorities with which you will use your water? You know, of three of the most abused terms of the last 25 years, one of course is reforms. Yeah, we throw millions of people out of jobs and call it a reform. The second of these, there are many, level playing field, you know? And the third is drought. Do we have a serious drought? You bet. Yes, we do. We do. But place it in a context. Why are people so much more vulnerable and susceptible to it today than they were 2 decades ago? You had deadly droughts in 65, 67 in Bihar. You had tremendous droughts in Maharashtra in 72. But something happened differently. Public action was different. Social action was different. Political action was different. And above, policy on using water was different. The priorities of using water were different. When we start painting everything, and so what I'm going to do today is to examine what I call the economy of thirst, the thirst economy. Please understand this. The two greatest crops in the world are not rice and wheat. They are hunger and thirst. And more revenue is made out of that than any other crop in history. Because if you look at the Fortune 500 list of most profitable companies, agribusiness companies are always in the top 10. Very often they are number 1 to 4, Archer Daniels, Midland, Cargill, Bunge, Dreyfus. These are the highest profit rates of companies, even within the Fortune 500, they very often are always in the top 10. So today, the greatest crop in Marathwada is thirst. Harvesting that is an incredibly profitable business, as I propose to show you. In Maharashtra, this economy is worth tens of billions of rupees. You can calculate it in terms of the tanker economy. You can calculate it in terms of the borewell economy. We'll come to each and every one of these. Okay? Sectorally, the borewell economy is worth, in 90 days, it's worth 10 to 12 billion rupees in Maharashtra. March, April, May. Sectorally, the tanker economy, people have ideas of tankers as some large, even a small drum. A tanker is simply a steel of a roll of, well, a rolled sheet of steel. That's what a tanker is. It can be small enough to take on a bullock cart, as you do. It can be a 20,000 liter thing. The town of Aurangabad, just one town in Marathwada, which holds the population of about 1/5 of Maharashtra, just one town in Maharashtra, Loksatta calculated last year that Aurangabad town, within the precincts of the town, the tanker water sales, not tanker sales, which is another industry, tanker water sales was worth 8 million rupees a day. In one town, 8 million rupees a day was the value of the water sold. The tanker industry is different from the tanker water industry. The tank making of tankers itself is worth tens of billions of rupees. Understand? Then the borewell industry, we'll come to that. That is a very special thing and is at the root in many ways of some of our water crisis, and even in terms of the agrarian crisis, it's pretty much involved. In the 1980s, Government of India actually had a program called the Million Borewell Scheme. Everybody should have a borewell, which meant, of course, that the richer farmers could take loans and get borewells, right? Now, today, the same zones, which were the Million Borewell Scheme success zones, are listed by governments as dark zones, black zones, grey zones, where you cannot put another borewell because the aquifer is finished. Okay, so that is also yet another thing there. But let me give you an example and a story of the borewell. There are farmers in Telangana, there are farmers in Andhra, there are farmers in Marathwada who have put between 30 and 50 borewells on one farm. Borewell bankruptcies is one of the fastest routes to farmer bankruptcies. The other is tractor bankruptcies, tractor loan bankruptcies. Okay, so now please know this. There are two kinds of soil formation from the point of view of borewell drillers. Soft soil, like if you went to coastal Andhra, soft soil, loose formation soil, or Marathwada and Telangana, hard rock. 93% of Maharashtra is hard rock. Now you know what the groundwater survey department put out 3 years ago? 2013. All this coverage was done, by the way, 3 years ago on what these sectors are doing. The Maharashtra groundwater survey department, उसने एक announcement लिया, आपका borewell अभी क्या strike कर रहा है? Paleo-historic storages of water. Water below the Deccan Trap that could be 10 to 20,000 years old. Well, it's probably better than the water we have today at the surface, but by the way it comes up, it mixes with various centuries and sediments of water. The water below, you're hitting hard rock, you're capturing water that is below the trap, below the Deccan Trap. So that's another thing. The borewell industry at this moment, as the agricultural season comes, there will be 3 borewells a village on average across Marathwada being drilled. People go bankrupt. There are guys I know who have 39. I ring up and ask them now and then, how are you? Have you survived? They can never repay the debt. A borewell for 500 feet costs about 1,50,000 to 1,75,000, including the casing, the pump, and everything else. Okay. Now, one town in Tamil Nadu, it's called Tiruchengodu. It's near Erode, 20 minutes drive from Erode. ये तिरुचनगोड नगर जो है छोटा टाउन है वो, it is the borewell rig capital of the world. How did I know? In the middle of Marathwada, standing in Marathwada on the highway, 3 borewell rigs pass me and they're all speaking Tamil. Then I go and find that the rig owner is a Tamilian. There are about 20 people. There are 2 vehicles, 20 people. The rig owner is a Tamilian. The supervisor for the whole team is a Malayali. The cook is a Kannadiga. The accountant is second supervisor is a Andhra. The 2 drilling engineers are Tamilians. All the workers are from UP, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh. There were 11 languages. Here you are. Make in India, pan-Indian force, labor force. So I asked the Tamilian, how come I don't see our fellow Tamilians here and you've got all these guys from Jharkhand and Purvanchal? And he said, yeah, he told us, sir, our fellows outside the state, they want work for 250, at least 400 they want. But these fellows from Chhattisgarh and all that, they'll work for 200 rupees they'll work. Okay, so you have a pan-Indian force emerging, workforce, and I was talking to them, there were 5, 6, I speak 5 languages equally badly, okay, but it was nice to be able to speak all of them to that crowd. So you have, now, Tiruchengood has an estimated 20,000 borewell rigs. They admit only to 7,000 because they've registered some of their borewells in other states to avoid tax issues. But even if we take a very conservative estimate of 10,000 borewells, rigs, I went off to Tiruchengood and sat in the main factory. The first rig that was coming back was from Mizoram. The second rig was returning from Jammu, the third from Sikar in Rajasthan. And when I expressed surprise, they said we are in 16 African countries. Okay. Now, the minimum that a rig drills, and by the way, these are very hardworking people, very decent people. I don't blame them for our problem. We have a particular policy towards the issue which has created this. I don't have a thing against the borewell drillers. They're meeting a serious demand of farmers. However, if 10,000 rigs from one town work only 200 days a year, they claim 300, 2 months of monsoon they do their repairing and servicing, but that 200 days that they work, if they work only 200, they say 300, then one town in Tamil Nadu is digging 2 billion feet into the aquifer every year. 2 billion feet of drilling, because the minimum you have to do is 1,000 feet in hard rock or 1,300 feet in soft soil to keep your economics going. Okay. We are talking about a gigantic industry, huge industry. And Telangana lo kuda undi. Borewell rigs akkade kuda vastayi, kani mostly they have been made in Tiruchengood. I'm just saying that for the benefit of my friend from Telangana who spoke to you this morning. If you start looking at it in terms of the borewell economy, you start looking at it in terms of the biggest, by the way, round the year, these are only for 3 months, 5 months. The biggest, which most of us do not discuss, is the goddamn bottled water industry, which is taking tens of billions of. Now, Coke and Pepsi drill in Varanasi, in Rajasthan. They will not dare drill those wells in California. They cannot. They can come here and loot your water. And you know how much in Thane in 2003, before huge agitations by the Kisan Sabha and others, the Maharashtra government was selling them water at 5 paisa a litre. Okay, that's one. Mr. Naidu went one step better. He was then Chief Minister of Andhra. He collected the water, treated it, purified it, and sold it to them at 25 paisa litre, which went into a bottle then which you were paying 12 rupees for. The bottled water industry is one of the biggest sources of water drain in drinking water. Make no mistake about it.